The protein powder sitting in a gym bag today has a past most people would never guess. Before it became part of fitness culture, before it appeared in meal plans, smoothie recipes, grocery store labels, and nutrition advice, whey protein was something far less glamorous. It was the leftover liquid from cheese making, a byproduct many people once saw as something to manage, discard, feed to animals, or simply move out of the way. That is what makes this story so powerful. One of the most recognized fitness products in the world did not begin as a glamorous health product or a carefully planned gym supplement. It began with people looking at cheese waste and asking a better question: what else could this become? To understand the story, we have to begin inside the cheese making process. When milk is turned into cheese, it separates into two main parts. The solid part becomes curds, which are pressed, shaped, aged, and eventually turned into cheese. The liquid left behind is called whey. For cheese makers, whey was produced in huge quantities. It was not rare and it was not difficult to find. In fact, it was almost impossible to avoid because every time cheese was made, whey appeared as part of the process. The main product was cheese, but the byproduct was this pale liquid that remained after the curds were separated. And for a long time, that created a problem. If your business is making cheese, then whey can feel like something outside the real product. The cheese is what customers want, what stores sell, and what companies package with pride. Whey, on the other hand, could look like the thing left behind after a valuable part had already been taken away. That is why whey was often treated as a low-value byproduct. Sometimes it was discarded. Sometimes it was used as animal feed. Sometimes it was seen less as an opportunity and more as a handling problem. Because large volumes of liquid waste are not easy to manage. But the strange thing is that the value was already there. Whey contained proteins, lactose, minerals, and useful properties that could serve the food industry in many different ways. The problem was not that whey had no value. The problem was that people had not yet built the right process, the right technology, and the right market around it. That is where the story begins to change. As dairy science and food processing advanced, whey started to look less like waste and more like raw material. Food scientists and processors found ways to separate its useful components, concentrate them, and dry them into forms that could be stored, shipped, and used in other products. A liquid that once seemed like the end of cheese making slowly became the beginning of something new. The transformation was not magic. It came from process, technology, and a shift in mindset. Through filtration, concentration, and drying, watery whey could be turned into dry whey, whey protein concentrate, whey protein isolate, and other dairy ingredients. In simple terms, the leftover liquid from cheese making could be filtered, refined, dried, and converted into protein-rich products. That was the turning point. Whey was no longer just what remained after cheese. It became a starting material for an entirely different set of products. The same liquid that once created a disposal problem now had commercial value. Then the timing became perfect. As fitness culture grew, people began paying more attention to protein. Not just as something bodybuilders cared about, but as part of everyday nutrition. Athletes wanted it for training and recovery. Everyday consumers wanted convenient options. Food companies wanted ingredients that could improve nutrition, texture, and shelf appeal. Whey protein fit that movement extremely well. It was practical, portable, and easy to mix into shakes or add to food products. It could be sold in tubs, packed into bars, blended into smoothies, and marketed to people who wanted a convenient way to increase protein in their diet. Slowly, the byproduct of cheese making entered gyms, kitchens, grocery stores, and nutrition shelves around the world. That is the real genius of this story. Nobody invented whey out of thin air, and nobody created it from nothing. It was already being produced every day, quietly, and in enormous quantities, beside an industry that already existed. The breakthrough was not the existence of whey, the breakthrough was the change in perception. One person may see leftover liquid, another may see a disposal problem, but someone with the right mindset may see a product, a process, a market, and eventually an industry. That is why whey protein belongs in the same larger theme as baby carrots, not accidental invention, but hidden value. The deeper lesson is that waste is not always waste. Sometimes it is value that has not yet found the right form. Sometimes it is an opportunity waiting for technology to catch up. Sometimes it is a business idea waiting for someone to ask a better question. Before whey protein became a symbol of modern fitness, it was simply the liquid left behind after cheese making. Before it became valuable, someone had to recognize that it already contained value. And before it became an industry, someone had to stop seeing it as the end of a process and start seeing it as the beginning of a new one. Innovation is not always about inventing something the world has never seen. Sometimes it is about looking again at something the world has already ignored. The next big idea may not always come from creating something new. Sometimes it comes from asking what else an existing thing can become. This is Kaizen Smarter, where curiosity meets clarity. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kaizen Smarter.